Okay. Whew. Welcome back. I hope everyone had a good break. If you are joining in from the stream, welcome to Making the Invisible Visible. This is a 2-day salon that we have created to showcase the incredible creatives around the world who are committed to creating a more regenerative, just, equitable future for all of life. And we're doing this together. And today we are getting to feature so many different people from around the world. And I wanted to take a moment to share a little bit as we are living this. I feel inspired to cooperate across the planet with artists in this space. And the reason that this is possible, and at least in the Design Science Studio, in this experience that we're having is largely because of the diversity of the community. And so one thing that we have is this really wonderful scholarship fund that Bliss recently realized had a perfect acronym, which is I.D.E.A. So our new acronym for our scholarship fund is now the I.D.E.A Scholarship Fund, which is Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access. And we have been raising funds since the beginning of the year, and we have made some progress. We've made progress that has gotten us about 5K. And this QR code will take you to support and to create more possibilities for creators from all around the world who are from underrepresented backgrounds and communities. And so many people who are part of this community in the Design Science Studio are receiving scholarship. We have 76% of the artists inside of the community who are currently on scholarship. And over the course of the Design Science Studio, we have awarded the equivalent of $334,000 in scholarships. Over 266 projects have been launched, 373 innovators from 42 countries have participated in the program, and it's a lot of work, and we want to make it better, and we want to continue to be able to create more pathways to uplift voices that need amplification, to make those invisible voices visible. And so what we do is we do this work to unite global innovators and artists and designers, and your help, and if you know people who are, have organizations that are partnering with initiatives or interested in nonprofit funding. We're a nonprofit initiative, and so we're also looking for individual donors, and literally, like, no amount is too small. Every little bit helps. So we're really, really, really grateful for everyone who's contributed and continues to contribute. We can pop the link in the chat, and if anybody wants to share about it, even if you maybe directly cannot contribute, every little bit helps to continue to empower communities that are championing environmental and social justice and cultivating these folks around the world who are directing their creativity towards a more regenerative future and building more of these creative interventions like the one we're experiencing today. So we'll be able to continue to do this program and fund and amplify the voices of women and internationals and creatives of color, folks from low-income backgrounds, LGBTQ+. These are all people in the margins of society generally. And one of the things that we're uncovering and we're looking at making the invisible visible is the systems of oppression and the systems that are not designed to support and uplift these voices. And I am one of those people. I am a woman, I'm a person of color, and I have had the great opportunity in my life to be surrounded by people and cultural spaces that encourage me to bring my voice forward for what I believe in. And so that's what we're trying to do here, and that's what we're actually living. And so your support helps to support the current artists. We still have 6 more weeks of this cohort, and then we'll move into the evolutionary program for everyone who is a graduate and continue to provide the ample support to kind of get the last leg of this and the launch, and then continued processes and support structures for everyone moving forward. And these are the voices that need to be amplified. They're missing from dominant narratives. So continue to help us amplify this fund. And we have this little live meter going. So we'll keep it up and we'll keep bringing it up. I can share my other screen here so you can see it. And yeah, so we will again put the link in the chat. And all of the money that's come in for the salon will also get contributed. So if you bought a ticket, like you're directly contributing, and that's amazing. And that number will change based on your ticket sales or your donations. So just want to thank you all again on behalf of the Design Science Studio. Welcome back to part 2 of Making the Invisible Divisible on day 1. And next up, I'm going to bring Eve, our volunteer coordinator, who is going to bring up our next session, which is very exciting. First time unveiling.
Yeah, super, super exciting. What an amazing project too. I got to sit in on some of the initial meetings with Stephen and Ian and watching them and listening to them brainstorm and all these ideas buzzing around. It's been really, really cool to get to witness the creation of this project. So what's up next is the Invisible Visible Zine publication release. Ian and Stephen have been working on this for the last month or so. And today is our launch. So Ian is a believer in a harmonic world where every living thing thrives. And Stephen is a designer who is exploring the evolution of design from physical artifacts to living systems. And I'm so grateful for both of these individuals. It's been a great experience to bond with you both.
Thank you so much, Eve. So great to be here. And yeah, this has been an amazing project. I've been actually for a very long time wanting to design a magazine. And it's been this community that's actually made this a reality. So what we wanted to do was just invite people into the messiness of this process, because it's something that's yeah, been wanting to be birthed for a long time, but there's a process to it. There's the invitation to the community to provide submissions for the magazine, and then there's trying to find ways to collaborate together. And yeah, so I'm not sure if I can see Ian.
He says he's on a dog walk, but I'll come hang out with you.
Okay.
And I think there's some other folks here, and he said he'll pop in shortly. But there's other folks who are here who also contributed.
Yeah.
And if they're available.
Wonderful. So yeah.
Is here who
So-
also added, and so is Tayo.
Yeah. So we'd love to get everybody together, just not to put everyone on the spot, but it might even be like a design proofing session. We're just going to show what's in process, but I needed to show people how this was being made by like bringing in the collaborators into a space. We're using Canva because it's a collaborative space where we can join together and work in the same space. So that's what we love about the way technology is going, is there's more and more opportunities to find ways to work together. And this just felt like a project that needed to happen. So why don't I could share my screen and just give a sneak preview of what's actually happening here. So here we go. It's there's the masthead, the cover, and so this is all messy in process. We're going to show you behind the scenes of how this gets made. So the invitation was showing the cover and maybe a little like, here's what the contents page could look like. It doesn't represent what's real yet, because we have things that were being made last night into the wee hours of the morning. And we have this beautiful letter from Roxy, one of our contributors, of course.
I would
And
totally read some of that out loud for fun if you want.
oh, absolutely. That would be amazing. Oh, did you mute yourself?
I am muted. Yeah, that happened. Yeah, so perfect example, as Steven said, like last minute download. I was like, well, I'll add something, and then it happened in the wee hours of the morning / the night, and here it is. So I was thinking I could read a little bit of it. I feel like lots of threads came together in this moment, and yeah, just super grateful that I had the opportunity to contribute something. So here's a bit of what came through. Okay, I got it on my screen now too. In the Design Science Studio, we spend many of our days chewing on the inquiry together. What does a world that works for all of life look like, feel like? How might we co-create it? In order to deepen into this question, inviting ourselves and each other into the roots, the systems that we are embedded within, contributing to, and an expression of. If radical means coming from the root, and the word education is from the root educare, which means to draw forth, then when we talk about radical systems change education, we're plunging into a process to draw forth change from the root. Detangling ourselves from the mess of modernity in the West as shrouded in remnants of colonization, capitalism, and extraction culture, we must continually decide not to look away, at the same time to commit to the practice of radical imagination. And I included a quote from Nassime Bahraini, which says, "This world with its sharp points and razor edges was doing all it could to tumble and smooth and tame you. It told you all these lies, shouted them so loud and so adamantly that maybe you almost started to believe." This is the work of the radical imagination. This is the work of a protopian futurist. This is the work of a regenerative artivist, to say, no, the way things are is not the way things have to be, nor is it the whole story. We must pull back the veil, look at the base elements, look at the ways that we are all an interbeing. Anyways, it goes on.
Beautiful. Thank you, Roxy. It's so great to have that that opening voice, the one who had this idea, maybe we should do this together. And here we are years later doing the thing. And so the following pages are actually an Instagram feed blown up with lots of notes and links, and thought I'd try to get behind maybe something that felt maybe a little bit cryptic, and then get into why this. And it's really about this shift from human-centered design to life-centered design. And the I that I'm showing on the cover is emblematic of all of these different things that are being woven into this narrative. And here we got Mark. And Mark and Larissa were able to share or through Mark's voice, able to share what they've been working on in the hackathon for the Campaign for Nature. And yeah, do you want to speak to this, Mark? And of course, there's beaming. So
yeah, no, it was just a great opportunity to create the campaign through the different means that the Design Science Studio is leveraging to beam what's coming from the Design Science Studio, and to, as our leprechaun can like to say, be the mediums. So it's nice to see all the other articles coming in through here.
Wonderful. Yeah. So we are the Beaming, the Backcasting Evolutionary Alliance mediums. And yeah, we've been running with this theme for a while. And thanks to Merck, bringing color, the full spectrum of life into view. And so we were also sharing about Story.Earth and our work with Kirk Bergstrom, this beautiful partnerships that's developed between Hab Ritual and WorldLink. And so I wanted to find a different way outside of the box to be able to represent the synthesis of art and science. And also, what if there was like a takeaway, like a Dymaxion map that you could have in the middle of the volume. And Moni is Roxy's mom. And she has contributed some beautiful poetry, featuring artwork by Umer Zia from the first cohort. So really honored to be able to represent both of their work here. And Lola Vila has been producing this beautiful imagery. The part where there's a little bit of a collaboration going on with the people who submit their work, and then the way I, as a designer, interpret that work. And I thought, why not bring the organic Fibonacci spiral into this? So it's a very subtle thing, but you can see how the images are organically in different sizes with a thin spiral line that runs through all of them, along with the text that Lola's provided about entangled futures. So it felt to me a very entangled way of being able to view this work. Tayo, maybe Tayo can speak to what he's submitted here. This also is in process. The images were provided all in this portrait format. So I was trying to figure out, how do I use the space available to show as much of his work while still having room for this this beautiful prose that he's offered. And we can, if Tayo's available, jump in whenever. But I'll keep on moving on. Rin Del Papa has written this beautiful piece on Our Future is Forged by the Stars. Oh, Tayo, you are here.
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm on a vacation, so I'm in a really good place right now. But thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Design Science. Yeah, I did not have, I didn't really know what to contribute this time for the salon, but one day I had an idea. The words came in first, and then the vision was these images that I've been creating. These are called Process of Love. I had a series of water and painting work. So that's called Love. But I was also documenting the process of creating love. And the complete love work is dried already. Water, I use water dried, so I don't, you don't see, what you can see is just the image, but the Process of Love is photography and video work. You can see movement during the process. And I don't know. I was very, very, very fascinated by the image that disappear on the complete. Yeah, I just cherished the process each moment, and there, yeah, I was documenting a lot of as photography and videos. Yeah,
Thank
please
you
read.
so much, Tayo. It feels like an invitation into that process, but also into the intention of how to really embody this in material, like and through the action, through time. Love that interaction and the way you've invited us into that experience. Wonderful. So yeah, Rinda Papa also invited us into her explorations in art and even the writings of Albert Einstein. So really fascinating to delve into that prose. Salem Jordan, I think you are here if you want to speak to it. Feel free to jump in as well. But yeah, some beautiful work that was provided, a little bit of text. So it gave me an opportunity here to really highlight the imagery and use a little bit of subtle typography over top of things. And then Melissa providing us it was like I think a last minute submission too, where there was one part and Melissa has also contributed to our Substack, which was how I was starting this process, was maybe we can collectively invite people into showing what we're doing in a very public way. A lot of what we do is in these events, and then people wait for the next event. But in this way, we could have things ongoing as a community publishing effort in digital form, but that could also feed into something that could be made visible and tangible in a printed form. So this is what was exciting about this process of making the invisible visible, is how do we bring people into the storytelling of also raising voices of people who's who need their work funded. So this is one of the reasons that I wanted to bring this up, was to create an opportunity for putting our work in the hands of people and helping them recognize there's an opportunity here to fund the work that makes the invisible visible, but also makes art that changes history. And we do that by reimagining the future. So this is amazing, what Melissa is doing, just being able to understand how the waste material that is coming out of the fashion industry is not waste. It can actually be made into fashion, and she's doing this in a number of different ways. So really provocative and inspiring. And so that's kind of where I've been able to get to. The rest of this is just kind of placeholders for me, exploring how the work that I've been doing to understand how to see things in a very different way, in a way that we can sense the here and now as a way of pulling the future of possibilities into reality, and those become the artifacts of the past. So the artifacts, the senses, and the possibilities are all part of this process of emergence that actually connects to all of reality. You know, this is a new way of looking at the calendar. And yeah, so just behind the scenes, grid systems and how did I build this? It was combining all these different ways of the invisible structure underneath everything that actually builds the layouts. So we can do that with squares, we can do that with spirals, we can do that with isometric grid systems. So that's how this whole thing is built. And that's a little sneak peek behind the curtain. Guess I'm a little bit over time, but that was worth it.
Wow. Stephen, thank you so much. And thank you, moderators. Growing up outside Greenwich Village in New York in the skate scene, we always used to make these little zines that people would Xerox and hand out. So I do believe the zine is a topic of the Regeneration, and I appreciate how you've woven the sacred geometry into it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Stephen. I'm really excited to introduce our next speaker. I couldn't be more excited. I am, oh wait, Danielle, Eve. Oh, I'm out of order. That's hilarious. That's great. It's okay. I just got excited because I was like, Heather. And
I know, I saw that. I was like, oh, just let her go. She's massive. Look at her go.
Anyways, guys, Heather's coming up. Don't go anywhere. But first, we have a very important person, also a very important person, the one and only Vincent. Woo, okay.
Yeah, Vincent Arena is the creator of actually what our platform for ticket sales was on. So all of you have visited one of his creations. He's a systems designer, information architect, and social entrepreneur. His program Catalyst specializes in mapping and matchmaking. The goal of Vincent's work is to help people navigate and find the people, resources, and opportunities they need to create coordinated impact. Welcome to the stage, Vincent.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Eve. So as Eve mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about information architecture and what that means. And a big component of what that's been for Catalyst is on structuring and storing information in a way that you can take the same underlying data and reuse it to build many different structures from the same work. And I think this relates to Buckminster Fuller's systems design principle of being able to be efficient. So it's like if you structure information in one way, but it's done that you can generate 10 different outputs from it, it's a really efficient way of organizing the information. And so through the last few years, I've been working on Catalyst and many different experiments on ways of visualizing and mapping information in order to help people connect with what they're looking for. And so I'm going to do a quick demo of the new system that we are developing on Catalyst based on all the feedback we've gotten from many of you in this community and others that have said, okay, what Catalyst is doing is awesome. Can it be even simpler and still have the same power? So this is a little bit of what that looks like. So I'm going to show you guys first the Becoming the Regeneration, which is the last event, to kind of show you how this could work. So in Catalyst, an event, a group, a community is a space. And within spaces, there's information. So here's all the information from the Becoming the Regeneration event. This includes the sessions, the tracks, the different presenters, the attendees, and being able to take this information and say, okay, I want to look at it in a card gallery, or I want to look at it in a grid, or stacked cards, being able to visualize it in different ways, and being able to then put structure on the information to then be able to create different outputs. So one example of that is this event wiki. So what I did was went through and said, okay, what are like the main ways that people might want to explore the event? So they might want to look at the different people that are doing work. They might want to look at the community and see different needs and offers. They might want to look at FAQs about the event, or they might want to replay it. And so replaying the event would then take you to the videos, and then taking you to those videos would let you actually watch and replay the event. And so this is just one other way of navigating through the information in a wiki structure. Or you could say, okay, actually, I want to see a calendar, and I want to be able to visualize it based on time. And so I'm gonna jump to the space for invisible visible. So this is a link I'm gonna share in the chat when I'm done. So this has all the attendees here today, and this is on a map view. And how this works as an admin of each of these sections, you can just say, okay, I want this to be a directory of people, and I want it to be in a map, a long card, and a gallery. Or maybe I also want to do it on a photo gallery view. And then that same information within a few different clicks, now you can transform it and look at it in many different ways. The other part about this is that once you have information in a system, just having a directory is not actually is not the end of what you're trying to accomplish. You create a directory so that people can take action on the information. And so the next part of the mapping is essentially being able to then take action on something. So if we were looking at the different sessions, what taking action could be is something like joining the event or adding it to your calendar. Or it could be doing sense making. And so what the thing that I have been using Catalyst for the most lately is going through past events or going through communities or knowledge networks and adding my own notes and comments. And so I can add a note saying, I want to add my slides here later, and I could make this public or private to just me, or shared to other people in the space. So let's say I'm going to make this private to just me, and I can make public comment that anyone could see saying, is there anything I missed? And so those two are comments, some that only I can see and some that everyone can see. Then I could also go to a different session. So let's say I'm looking forward to Heather's talk and I were to save this. This could be during the event or after. I could write a little to-do to say, oh, I want to thank Heather, or I want to look into their work more. And so now on the dashboard, you have essentially your own personal overview, your layer of the whole event. So if I click on notes, I can see the 2 notes that I just made. If I go to the tasks, I can see right now that there's 2 to-dos on this session. I've checked off one of them, so I have a little dashboard of my progress on what I've actually done. And so being able to have tools that actually encourage us to reach our goals and have a place to actually interact with information in a way that's actionable and that's helping us connect or take action. That's sort of the next step that Catalyst is finally able to get to, that we've built the sort of foundational infrastructure of being able to have the information there. And the future of where things are going with Catalyst is to go from mapping to enable matchmaking. And so one of the features that we're working on is this matchmaking feature, or building connections. So if I went to a project like wayfinding, I could create a relationship between this and any other object in this space. I could also, instead of creating a relationship, create a suggestion. So I could say that, let's see, Roxy should connect with, and I'm going to reverse these. I'm going to say Roxy should connect with wayfinding. And I could say, this is a cool talk you missed. Check it out. So now there is a suggested connection between Roxy and this talk. If Roxy were to go to her dashboard, then she would see suggested connections, and accepting those connections then is what starts giving us the information on who are the matchmakers in our community, who makes the best suggested connections, and how successful was an event or a network or a community in helping people connect to what they're looking for. I'll share a few other things about this link since you guys are going to get this in the chat soon. So this also has all the sessions for today, which you can explore in different ways. There's the list of the map and the list of all the attendees. And then the zine publications, we also created a tab for those, so you can explore on your own time any of these projects. One of the other insights that we've had is that being able to view information and compare it is a really helpful tool for learning and for matchmaking. So being able to look at someone's website and then have an interface at the same time to take notes on it, or to add tasks about it, or to have a really quick way to see how things are connected, or to create those connections. So like I was saying, here's the connection I made with Roxy checking out this project. Being able to make that something that is all possible within one experience was a really unique insight that we came across that has really shaped the design of Catalyst. So yeah, I think that's mostly it. This is a total work in progress, and would really love feedback on this. So if anyone checks this out and has things that they love, things that they wish could be different, or things that they wonder might be here, please reach out to me. This whole process has been shaped by the community, and it will continue to stay that way. So thanks everyone, and thanks to Roxy and the Design Science Studio for always experimenting and being open to trying new things.
I would love to just come up and say that if it weren't for Vincent, this event for sure would have been very hard to navigate, and so many more. It has, like, literally we've designed together, and last time we had a salon, we shared this really great metaphor, but I think it's worth sharing again, that you were like, okay, like, you dream it and then I'll build it. And it's really been that way, because I'm like, it's a really unique thing to have so many people with so many visions and different iterations and different things that we're experimenting with. Like, last time we had an exhibition, this time we have a zine. Like, okay, well, how do we make sure that those things are still interconnected and really easy for folks to follow up on? Because it's one thing to have an showcase, and it's another thing to actually be able to, like, deepen into the individuals. And all of this is currently, like, back-ended in our Airtable system, and it all, like, Vincent's constantly, like, writing new code to meet the needs of the community. It's amazing. And we have a few minutes, and if anyone has any, like, real-time feedback or thoughts, reflections, questions, this is a really great time to do that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. While we're waiting for people to raise their hands or ask any questions, I felt so excited this week when you were like, we want to do the zines, and I was like, oh, I could do that in like 2 minutes. Like, I'm prepared for that. Like getting a product to a point where, like, someone says, I want this thing, and then it's like, oh yeah, we could do that. Like, that flexibility is something I probably would have never strove for without working with the design science studio. Because you guys are always like, we want this, and it's like, well, that doesn't fit into like the rigid structure. And so yeah, being able to like have the balance of both of those is a difficult challenge, but it's really exciting.
I will say, as folks are starting to raise their hands, but not everyone knows Vincent from before. Vincent was in cohort 2, and this was your incubated project. And so it's just amazing to see how far it's come and to have been in any way a contribution to that. Ooh, I'm so excited. Krishnan raised your hand. Yay. Hi, new friend.
Yeah, thank you, Vincent. I have a question. I was wondering, you talk about the way that certain things can get related and connected to each other. Is
Yeah.
there a way that a view that we could see that visually? So like if I was looking at a project, I could see visually that it's connected to the different people or different things like that within it, because I'm such a visual thinker and spatial thinker that if I'm able to see any aspect and how it connects, I feel like there's other sense-making opportunities and other ways in which to contribute. So I was just curious if that existed as well.
Yes. So let me share another example, which is this is the Climate Ready Tech Hub. And the thing about creating two things. One is that network map visualizations require good curation or else they become a mess. And so I'm going to show you an example of this is a ecosystem map of everyone in South Florida that is doing climate work. So there's people, there's assets and resources, there's organizations. And so within any of these objects, so like, for example, Jen, if you scroll down, there's a relationship between Jen and the organization Miami-Dade County. And so if you were to click view, then that would jump to Miami-Dade County, and then you could see all the people that are related to Miami-Dade. So doing this like interconnection work is really important. And then we have an integration with Kumu where you can take those relationships and be able to visualize how things are connected. And now those connections could just be a line between two things saying these are related. So this is just like Michael, University of Miami, related. So that's one way of visualizing a connection. There's another way to do that, which is actually building a knowledge network or knowledge graph. And I'll see if I can pull up an example of that. Let's see. I was literally working on this yesterday. So I was working on this network map of climate systems as it relates to resiliency and climate change. So here's an example where you have things like consumption growth, and consumption growth has a direct relationship with the average level of material consumption per person. And so you can actually have a relationship or an edge. So this one is that average level of consumption drives overall consumption growth. And this edge itself actually has a whole description about the relationship between those two things. There's a strength, a connection type. You can see the positive and the arrow, which shows the relationship dynamics. So it really depends on how complicated the map is. I don't think we need to have this level of systems dynamics applied to a map of people and presenters at a conference. But that's the scope and scale of the type of work we're doing to try to make sure that, yeah, it's really the edges and where things are connected is really the important thing. And that exists right now within the link I shared, just seeing how things are related and jumping around. But what we're kind of trying to get to next is making it just as easy to be able to make those more structured relationships as it is to just say these two things are connected. There's a different level of, but there are certain use cases where that's too much. So I hope that answers your question. I'm not sure if I'm over time, but I'd love to hear from Stephen if that's okay, Roxy.
I think of all people, Vincent, you are allowed to go over time.
I can update the agenda. Hey, Stephen.
Hey, Vincent, this is amazing. And I've been thinking a lot about the interconnection between managing group information architecture within things like WhatsApp, Discord, when you're trying to do something like the DSS, or even just a work project where you're managing a number of volunteers and you have people who are kind of, it's like the investment, the more people are communicating with each other, the more lively the group gets. And I was wondering if there was a way to somehow automate with something like GPT-4, something smart enough to pull from various, let's say, meeting notes, or let's say even from this event and various things when people say, oh, this is an idea, or oh, we should do this, or someone's talking on the Discord group and they're going back and forth about things. And it relates back to some of this information architecture of the design challenges that we're all collectively dealing with as sort of this mesh net of revolutionaries and regenerators. Is there a way to design a system where we could have those pieces of brilliance and those information and those tasks and those things pulled out and like redistributed among a collective group? So like some people are older, I've noticed people use Google Groups a lot, that's their thing. My thing is definitely like I get email overload. So if it's in an email, it needs to be like condensed into a digest, or I just won't see it. It's too much. But I'm really native to like threaded conversation like Slack and Discord. But then there's other people who aren't there and they're missing out on the conversations. Or let's say just Discord dies because you don't get that critical mass of, I mean, obviously Facebook throws billions of dollars behind keeping people on the platform. But when it comes to a group this size, Stephen and Bao and I have talked a lot about the burnout that happens as organizers. And so it's simply like getting out meeting invitation notes, like disseminating summaries of, just to keep people in the loop that need to be. And I feel like your information architecture thing with the different maps and things is absolutely brilliant. I feel like that could be applied to, just as an aside, I feel like that could be applied to some of the design challenges themselves that we're dealing with globally, like in actually using that for building out solutions, not just with, like you said, social mapping. So my question real quick, and maybe it doesn't have an answer right now, but that's what I've been wanting to build and I don't have the skills to do it. So I'm really excited to hear what you're working on.
Yeah, it's okay. So I'm really glad that our brains work in the same way, because I've had a similar insight, which is that yeah, like there's a dynamic, it's called a balancing feedback loop in systems. So it's like the more activity there is in a group chat, like the better it is, until it gets too much. And then certain people drop out because they get overwhelmed. So it kind of like keeps a certain level of balance. Like there's a ceiling and a floor. If it goes too much, then it gets too overwhelming and too unorganized. And so one of the tools we built is called Catabot, and it could be hooked into like a Telegram group or a Discord group, and then that data can go into Catalyst. The problem that we haven't solved yet is a good process for like sifting through 1,000 messages and figuring out which ones of these are signal and which ones are noise, and which ones. And I think there needs to be really good like community processes for knowledge gardening. So like kind of going through, and I just got back from my grandmother's house and we're going through like all of her like 1970 magazines, and we're trying to figure out, okay, like what is like going in recycling and what is going into like, storage, or what's like sorting that information and figuring out, okay, what is good enough for us to put into like an ecosystem map. And then in terms of the information display, like that's just another view in my eyes. So like a message is just an object of type message, which has certain properties like who sent it and the date. And this is an example of like one of the views we're working on. This is a thread view. So being able to say, okay, like for messages, it might not make sense to show them in a map because we might not have the location of where the data came from, but it would make sense to show this in a threaded list of chronological feed that people can comment on or reply to. So that's sort of like the edge of where we're working on, is figuring out how to sort through. And I think there's a really big opportunity for AI and ChatGPT to potentially be like an assistant for that. Like, hey, I've suggested that these are the high signal messages based on like, just the filters you have prescribed on what we're looking for and the number of interactions on the message. Do you want to now move these from the the feed or the stream where things get lost and buried. You have to scroll back into like the garden where now they can be organized and part of your like knowledge repository. So I see it as like a knowledge process, and like the Miro board, the Zoom chat, like there's all this activity happening, but like, how do you take the important stuff out and then make it organizational knowledge that you can build upon? That's the sort of like process innovation that I think needs to work in tandem with communities like Design Science Studio. And like, if there are people here that are interested in what Steve and I are talking about and want to like set up a working group to figure out how to do this within the Design Science Studio community, like this is like, it's a process innovation more than it is technology, I think, at this point. So would love to co-design that with you all.
Amazing. Thank you.
Seems like that's something exciting for folks. So that's great. Okay, Roxy, pull me off stage. I'm over time.
Okay. Let me get up here with you. One moment. I'm lost in my tabs as usual. Okay, here we go. Hi. That was great. I'm glad that we got to have a conversation about it. And it's really exciting to see. I actually understood some of the new features better with you doing the demo like this instead of the way you showed it to me yesterday. And then I was trying to like navigate it on my own. Really looking forward to digging into it more. And I feel like there's something to these like short video, like maybe you make some like micro loom videos of like navigate it like this, because I see lots of nodding, because it helps to like witness and be like, oh, these are the connections. I think Krishnan said something about that. So maybe that's a good point to follow back up on. And I'm looking forward to playing more, and thank you so much. And I'm glad you were able to make time today. People need to know the man behind the magic. All right, my dear. On to the next. Thank you so much, Vincent. I'm going to bring Eve back up.
Hello, friends. So up next, we have Danielle Frost. Danielle is a lifelong bodywork massage therapist and can't pronounce it, sorry. Danielle is an artist and
esthetician.
Thank you. And throughout her life has maintained a love of the arts, inclusive of painting, sculpture, and more recently, art installations at large festivals. Danielle aspires to build a visionary gathering space for her developing rural community in Black Mountain. Danielle is also volunteering right now as one of my fellow MCs, and I'm very, very grateful. So let's watch this video.
Danielle, do you want to say anything to frame the video up before, or did you want to share a few words after?
Well, I just hope it works. Yeah.
My name is Danielle Frost, and I'm here at the Old Fort, North Carolina train station and museum. I'd like to take you on a little tour of our region. The museum's closed, but I've got some things to share with you. I realized this would make a great place for a vision train exhibition. Old Fort had an old fort. It was a stand against the Cherokee, so this commemorative exists today. There was a museum of artifacts. Let's head up the mountain. This is my friend Kelly's house, where she has wonderful potlucks and introduced me to this wonderful farm. This is the Crooked Creek that runs through, and the Crooked Creek gas station that was acquired by my friend Chris. He's got a lot of work to do. Yet the firehouse is a new addition, and the walking trail too. My friend is now a marathon runner due to the walking trail, and we hope Chris can get the store going. This is the old store, the beer store across the county line. Exactly what you think about with generated models of utopia. Coming around the bend here up to Danny's place. My beautiful mailbox. And the best I could do at a visual for you along the roadside. This is where I'd like to build a yoga center, yoga studio, Shala. Lastly, the power line easement. A very generous power line easement that would make a beautiful pollinator corridor. Here's a beautiful hypericum I found growing on the roadside, and down to Trillium Cabin. called trillium for its plethora of trillium, sessile trillium. Haven't seen it like this. And some naturalized hellebores, which I put in many, many years ago. This vinca I'm doing a restoration on. It takes over as invasive. And daffodils for Easter. Some beautiful spring ephemeral plants. So happy to share with you my favorite time of year. Sanguinaria canadensis, the bloodroot, and some more helleborus for your meditation pleasure, which I'd like to share some more with you about now.
Thank you. I did some research on the hellebore, and the hellebore is a beautiful plant. The etymology of hella means hidden or concealed, kind of like halo. And it has some folklore that you can grind it up and sprinkle it on your path in the garden to make you invisible to the fairies. So I kind of like that. And I initially called this rose-colored glasses because you can see how we are a work in progress in a developing community. But then I thought about how we study in one of our runoff trains on the vision train about our ideals. And maybe sometimes having too many of our ideals isn't always a good thing. So I called this Lenten Rose Glasses because I'd like us to invoke a sense of what does progress and balance look like, or how does balance and progress feel? And I like this metaphor for the hellebore because it's naturalized very nicely, and I have all these invasive plants. And so I like this balancing feedback loop that we spoke about in Catalyst. The hellebore really is something that I can introduce and also is toxic, but also is beautiful. And it doesn't become invasive. It's one of these progress and balance plants in the spiritual striving. And so I'd like to do a quick thing with us. If you could feel your sit bones, take a breath, close your eyes, see your third eye. Now pull your focus to the outside of your eyes, to your temples. And now pull your focus to the marma point in the back of your head. And then to the center of your brain. And now imagine the torus, the toroid, the ram spiral of the ram's horn. And take a deep breath. And on the exhale, exhale up and out and see the energy move around the torus. And you can do this again on inhale, and on the exhale, the torus. And back to your third eye. And open your eyes with your rose Lenten glasses. Have a beautiful weekend, everybody.
Thank you. Wow, that was such a complex presentation. I really loved getting to see where you're from. I'm in Oregon, and one of my favorite things to do when I'm able to get the time is to go out to the country, because that's really where the relationship between Earth and humanity is still present. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And also the rose tinting glasses activity was really great and interactive. I liked that. Thank you. I think Roxy is introducing the next person. Yeah, Roxy.
Yes, thank you, Eve. And thank you. Just I want to acknowledge Eve. Eve has been volunteer coordinating and stepped in this year, knowing that there was a big gap because of the lack of resources that we have been doing our best to move through. And you have so beautifully woven so many creators in the community today and taken time with each of them and, you know, helped create a much lighter lift because we've all done it together. So really great.
Well, I love you. Design Science Studio is, and I know I've told you this, it's exactly what this world needs. And I know that, and I believe that. I really do. So thank you for having us, and thank you for creating this all together.
Thank you, Eve. It is definitely something we do together. And not the systems don't always respond to support things that are a little different. So we got to be patient as we find the right path. But is a good segue actually to introducing Heather Luna. So I am excited, so excited that I completely bulldozed over Vincent earlier, even though I told him he was up next. Sorry about that. To welcome Heather. I met Heather when I was taking an amazing course that Heather's going to talk a little bit about today, last year, that Kelly was also in, who is going to be sharing next. And Heather was one of the coaches in this program for decolonial sustainability for professionals. And afterwards had the opportunity to have Heather come to teach not one, not two, but 3 sessions in the Design Science Studio this year, all about what does it really take to integrate a more decolonial practice into our lives? What are the patterns? What are some of those leftover pieces that we have, carried forward from colonization, and what are the practices that we need to detangle, and what does it really take to do this work? So Heather is here to share with us about beginning to decolonize sustainability, and is a white passing English, Spanish, Indigenous heritage Colombian USer, born and raised in the US, spending 17 years in England before moving to Colombia, where her grandmother and many uncles and cousins live. She works with organizations on the I.D.E.A and DEI, offering a non-tick box approach to the complexity. She coaches individuals, supporting with their grappling with their power and privilege positionality, including skilling up for challenging oppression directed at us and others, and works with Possible Futures. This course that I was mentioning is one of the leads there is Samantha Sapaya, who was previously on the Design Science Studio team. And today's all about making the invisible visible. And one of those things that you have helped this community make visible has been, what does it really take to decolonize? And so thank you for being here, Heather. Welcome.
Thanks for having me back again. Yeah, so yeah, I think it's so interesting to be called like a visionary, because we all have that capability of visioning. However, it's like patriarchy and colonialism, which lay in patterns and beliefs that make it really hard for us to think radically when we're thinking about visions. And so many people, maybe outside especially, think, oh yeah, the future, I envision solar panels, or I just envision what we have now, but greener. And not really thinking about where the materials come from. And I did a session on ecofascism and things like that. And not really thinking about consumption and decision-making, just assuming that the status quo is going to hold on that, and we're just going to tweak the edges. But I would say that when we're born, we are born completely powerful. We know exactly what we need to do to mobilize resources to get what we need. We cry. And we expect the world to meet our needs. And we expect there to be that flow, and that there will be togetherness, and that we will have choice in this. And then very quickly, things start to take that away. And that we realize in order to get the resources that we need to get our needs met, that we have to play by rules. And these rules don't make sense. And we start to lose the ability to envision the world that we were expecting when we were born. And so when maybe we're designing for sustainability, we're going to run into assumptions and beliefs and patterns that keep our vision narrow, because our brain keeps pulling us back to the familiar. And unless we deliberately and intentionally interrogate these assumptions, these beliefs, and these patterns, we're going to keep falling back into the familiar. And so one of the ways to deliberately put ourselves into that space of interrogation is through this course that Possible Futures runs. It's called Intro to Decolonial Sustainability. And it's led by women from the Global South, the Philippines, Brazil, China, India. And they've cultivated this beautiful space and designed a story that takes people through quite a painful journey of noticing these patterns in ourselves and in the sustainability industry. And the patriarchy and colonial ways that we're seeped in have set things up so that it's really hard for us to take in information like that, because we're usually trying to do so in a really isolated way in an individualistic society. So very deliberately, the course facilitators, and they're called navigators because you're on this journey, they put everyone into groups, and those groups are called crews. And so you're doing this work together, which is a huge contradiction to the individuality and having to prove ourselves and the expectations that people have on us and what we have on ourselves. And so you're in this crew together and you're exploring this painful reality of these beliefs and assumptions and patterns that we have. You're supporting each other and you're challenged together. Now, it's not easy sailing because there are certain dynamics that are present in this course which mimic what happens outside the course in the world. So I want you to think about how comfortable would you be accepting leadership from women in the Global South? Because that could be quite unusual for you. You could be working in the Global North. You could have bosses and managers and colleagues who are working within the Global North. Even if there are people here from the Global South, you might even still live in the Global South, there's internalized oppression. So you could still be manifesting these patterns and beliefs and assumptions that were exported through the colonization around the world. And so even though someone could be from the Global South, living in the Global South, they might have trouble accepting leadership from women in the Global South. And not only that, when you're in this crew with other expeditioners, it'll be a mixed space. And so there will be racialized white people from the Global North, and there will be racialized non-white people in the Global North, and there will be people from the Global South who live in the Global South, and they will be in that mixed space. And not everyone there will have trained awareness about positionality, about oppression, internalized oppression, and harm can happen in these course spaces. And it will happen. And in fact, it's kind of a meta part of the course is that everyone is encouraged to name these harms that take place as they happen. So it's a deeply uncomfortable space. We don't pretend that everything's just nice. And if there's tension, we don't say anything. It'll come back. Even if in the moment it isn't mentioned, it will be raised. So there are coaches, and there are 4 of us, I'm one of them, who are available to accompany and support expeditioners in navigating all of this. And so all those dynamics, as well as the painful realizations that maybe despite all our good intentions, we're perpetuating the same patterns that got us into the global crises that we're in now. And so that can create a kind of identity crisis, which a lot of the people I coach on the course are going through right now in the current cohort that's just past the midpoint. People say, should I stay in the sustainability industry or should I go? If I stay, how do I affect change? Am I kidding myself? Do I go? If I go, how will I make money? How will I justify myself to myself, to people around me? How will I justify my status, keep my status? So, circling back to visionaries, I believe we are all born visionaries, and we can all reclaim that ability, but it needs to be deliberate, and it requires us to unpack a whole load of assumptions, beliefs, and patterns to make the invisible visible. And I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the course. And they might have already put it in the chat, but just in case, there's the possible futures course. And there's your, let me move that.
Showing the run of show.
Yep, there you go. So the registration's now open for the course, the next cohort, which is coming up, and you've got the link in there. And you can see what people have been saying about it. You can read about the background for it and what an uncomfortable space it is, what you can get out of it. The navigators have put together this really creative using mural and videos, an amazing design, which take you through stories. You hear people from the global south, people who are on the front lines of the harm that's happening. You talk about different narratives and collapse and patterns. And this next course is going to start mid-July, runs for 5 months. It's every 2 weeks in 2 different time zones. One is suitable for like Pacific, Asia Pacific, and the other one suitable for Europe, Africa. And they are recorded, so if you can't attend live, you can watch it. But it is very much an interactive space, like that you will work with your crew on learning. It's not an individual thing, although there is self-led homework. And you have access to individual coaching as well. So they don't accept everyone who applies. So you would need to be vetted because of that dynamic in there of it being led by women in the global south. They are like prioritizing right relationships in that way to ensure that they get the kind of people on the course who are going to have that humility and curiosity to do that work in community with everyone. So I'm open to hearing if you have any questions about anything that I shared. Yeah, I think you were on the Friday night, right, Roxy? Yeah. So on Sundays, there probably are other people from the US, but they have to get up early. Like from the West Coast, it would be really early, like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. But for East Coast, it's okay.
There's a question in the chat from Krishnan.
Mhm.
Since we have a stream going, I'll read it. I'm curious if you have a vision that is drastically different from dominant culture's vision. How can we communicate these new visions, especially if important aspects are held in subtle feelings or in somatic awareness, with the appropriate conceptual frameworks to uncover bridges for shared understanding?
Yeah, I think that what works in communication is connecting with people around like our universal needs that we're trying to get met. So if you can communicate that that like, don't we all want this one thing? and talk about how there are different strategies for getting those needs met. And some of those strategies are really harmful to life on the planet, for example. And so suggesting that let's explore that there are other strategies for getting needs met. And that's where we get pulled into vision, by being able to frame it as needs being met. So needs around, clean air, food, shelter, but also meaning, connection, contribution, community, these other needs. And that some of them are not being met very well on the planet right now. But even the ones that people might feel like they are getting met could be the strategy to get them met is destructive. And so it's like supporting people and thinking about that there are different strategies for getting needs met. There is no glue that's attaching a particular need to a particular strategy, that we actually can stretch into the imagination, into exploring all the different ways that needs could be met. And so that's how I think is a good strategy for communicating radical visions, such as like Melissa did in that zine that we were looking at earlier, when it was like, I'm glad wars no longer happen. It's like that is a vision of a world with no wars. And that's hard for some people to even imagine. And yet it's quite, it's a simple statement and it's quite radical. And if we were moving towards that, what would we design for to make that possible? And how do we orient our work towards that, if that's our own particular vision or our community's vision? Thanks for asking that. I hope that helped. Zach?
Yeah. Hi, nice to meet you. Yeah, I completely see where you're coming from. There's a lot of over dominant aspects in both genders. That's male and female. And I think that's what's causing a lot of the conflict, to be honest with you.
Yeah, patriarchy doesn't mean men. Patriarchy means a kind of like a structure, and where like force is being used, that there isn't a kind of flow happening, a connection happening. So it doesn't mean like a male is in charge.
Yeah, so it's listening to what is the current value of, the people you're around, the common goal to what you're pushing towards, and what is the group intention. I have a question for you, and thank you for sharing today. Really insightful. Do you believe we came from monkeys?
What makes you want to know?
This comes to my brain as curiosity, to be honest with you. Do you think we come from a Neanderthal?
But why does that like feel important to you to know in the context of this conversation about vision?
Because a lot of our like genetics and our social gathering come a long way from that lineage. That's why I asked.
I think that if you're thinking about what kind of like humans, if we're social animals, I think we are, because if you look at when a baby is born, they're dependent on other humans for so much longer than any other species. And so that requires, a lot of support and And yeah, I think that like universal human needs include, like I say, community and support like that. And so any kind of design where we're not taking that into account is going to leave us like lacking and feeling disconnected.
Okay. The thing with vision and the thing with like congregation of apes and different types of monkeys, it's genetically embedded in our genetics to gather as like tribes, to gather as like a community of people. Comes back a long way.
Yeah, it's important that we notice where we don't have that and mourn that we don't have it and design for it, I think. Roxy?
You mentioned something earlier about the current group and the like existential crises that they're sort of facing. And I'm curious, since you've seen now a few groups, I think you had a group before ours, and now another one. What are some of the patterns that you're like witnessing come up for folks in terms of like going through their own decolonial process, and what do you, yeah, I guess I don't have too much time left, but I feel like that's, as someone who's considering, well, I hope people here, I think there's some folks in the chat and some people on the stream who are like, oh, this is interesting, I want the link, like, what can they prepare themselves for to some extent, you know?
I suppose it's really hard to prepare people for this because it ends up being really in the face, on the nose. There's a lot of grief, you know. People are really just questioning everything they've been doing, what their role could be, really worried that they're not able to like make visible the invisible in themselves personally, that they're kidding themselves, that they're holding on to forms of identity that aren't going to serve them. And I think that's normal, part of the process, and that we do need to make space to mourn together. But then to do that visioning, I think the visioning is super important, because then it will help you like do an inventory of your strengths and your limitations and how best to move energy. What makes sense for you, your purpose in this moment, in moving towards that vision, recognizing the gap between where we are now and where you want us to be, and being able to deliberately and intentionally put into practice things that give you energy and keep you moving forward.
I definitely went through that, and I'm still going through that. I think it really helps you question your integrity and your willingness to make radical change in yourself if you want to see radical change in the world. Yeah.
Just to mention as well, I'll kind of like a little bit of our issue with our I'll wrap this up really quickly, but basically this question here: are we able to decolonize this idea that we are descendants from apes as well? Right, I'll be upfront with you. If you take a good look at the skeleton of many types of people from all the way around the world, you will see different states of structure through evolution. I'm not saying that we came from apes, but there's a strong indication that we do.
Thanks.
Yeah, and you know, this is the kind of conversation, if Melina's still here, she's an evolutionary biologist, and that would be a good person to talk to you about it too. Did you have something you wanted to share, Heather?
Oh, that's it. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. I'm just so passionate about this work in the world. It's really transformed my life. And I feel like such a student to it. And I feel like I'm just beginning to peel back the layers. And I'm very grateful that you came, and I put the link in the chat for folks who are here live who aren't a part of the Design Science Studio community, who didn't get to see the video that was also prepared, but that's now a public resource. So I hope that people can check it out. And Heather, I'm not sure, I guess in closing, how public your coaching work is around this stuff.
Yeah, it's open to anyone who would like coaching. Contact me. I work on a gift economy basis. So if you can't afford it, I will coach you for no pay. And if it depends on your willingness and ability.
Thank you, Heather. We'll definitely drop your links in the chat again. And it's been such an honor to have you back. And I'm excited that coming up next is Kelly. This is a full circle moment for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Heather. I loved it when you came in and talked to our cohort, and when we were trying to figure out speakers to ask, you were definitely at the top of my list. I was like, I want Heather. I want to continue to learn from you, continue to expand my mind and my understanding perspective. Thank you. Thank you. So next up, we have Reframing Biodiversity with Kelly Nooner and Stephanie Schwartz. This was one of the project winners from the Pathways Program Hackathon with the Campaign for Nature. Kelly is a designer and researcher passionate about exploring the intersections of people, systems, and technology. And Stephanie's deep-rooted love for photography and video and art is derived from her passion for nature, assisting others to expand their ways of seeing and sensing, and it's an invitation to explore and perceive the world and perspectives in new ways that may not have been considered before. I look forward to hearing about your project. Thanks for being here.
Great, thank you so much. Just for those who don't know, the pathway to the Pathways campaign in nature was with the Design Science Studio, and it was just a really interesting hackathon, a wonderful hackathon where we were put into teams of 3, and we had a 3-day, 12-hour-a-day hackathon that the Design Science Studio led. And so what our team came up with was, well, we called ourselves Way Weavers, and it was really about reframing biodiversity and really the fact that we all need each other here and everything is interrelated is an aspect of that. And so Kelly is going to share I'm going to share the slide deck that we have, and just talk more about what our vision is and what we're going to ask about as well.
All right, great. Yeah, thanks for introducing that, Stephanie. Can folks see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we were, Stephanie already introed what this is about, and so what we're going to share now is like the idea we came up with and some of the plans and kind of an invitation for folks to get involved. So the importance of biodiversity is backed by data, science, and popular support. So why hasn't it received the financial backing that it needs? Biodiversity's impact on both the everyday things that we, encounter and maybe take for granted, and important priorities seem invisible to funding decision makers in the global north who have made these commitments to fund biodiversity but haven't followed through. But biodiversity supports everything from macro goals they care about, like population health, disaster prevention, to those micro aspects of life, like the food we eat. So we need to help them see the inherent connections to their critical priorities that they prioritize funding and support for. So how do we help them make that connection? Like weaving and reframing biodiversity bridges the understanding gap between biodiversity's impact on everyday elements of life and top funding priorities using simple comparisons supported by facts, creating pathways towards a new sense of interconnectedness and importance. It reframes biodiversity, which we're part of and not separate from, and creates and things we need, like, and take for granted and want to fund. It's an invitation embedded into everyday items and experiences. It's evidence-based with supporting data, and it kind of uses public pressure to engage the full ecosystem of biodiversity supporters. So these were kind of our prototypes from the hackathon about what some kind of potential visuals might be. And it's really a simple foundation of really simple messages that connect facts or data points that link everyday things and government priority areas with biodiversity's impact. On a grander scale, there's an idea for like a supporting toolkit, including maybe fact sheets and slides for policy leaders to kind of bring into their work and make the case for biodiversity in critical places where they're trying to, get that funding priority elevated and really get people to commit to it. A website with information, visual resources, and action items to support policy shapers, engage the general public, and create pressure for heads of state. Toolkit and engagement plan for influential partners in the public through things like posters or social media to kind of help people easily get involved and get like the word out. And physical installations and activations in targeted public spaces, including conferences and grocery stores, through stickers on everyday items, posters, and more. So kind of at a kind of further off plan, there could be kind of full takeover of COP29 in Azerbaijan with different beverages, I guess outfitting the space, things like that, and really hyper-contextualize it, and then kind of having a website with more context. So kind of some of the secret sauce of this approach is it's simple, quick, unexpected and impactful interconnections. It's adaptable, tailored to fit different topics and settings that can work from a smaller meeting to kind of a grander scale event. It's flexible, it scales up and down to fit different contexts and budget potentials, and provides an invitation to kind of bring people in, get them kind of questioning what they think and know and learn more. So our audience for this is really trying to steer decision makers like heads of state who are, making these decisions around what to fund, maybe like environmental ministers or leaders who are trying to convince and persuade other people to prioritize biodiversity funding, and the general public who care about biodiversity but need a way maybe to bridge the gap with people who don't understand or maybe care about it inherently enough. So, the current state is that biodiversity preservation funding and efforts, they lose to other funding priorities because people don't understand the connection. We want to create a perception change that shows how biodiversity is connected to goals and things that people care about. And then it kind of leads to a paradigm shift where it weaves a stronger web of connection between biodiversity and collective global flourishing. It kind of leverages a full cooperative ecosystem web by helping policymakers and shapers with influence better make the case, and works within their existing work, by providing ways to support their advocacy. The general public, gives them easy tools to bring this message into new places and start conversations with people. Align people and organizations with influence, can help kind of, make a bridge to connections to create a stronger, I guess, coalition around biodiversity by kind of, bridging that language from, to governments and to people who aren't inherently interested in it, to things they care about, and partner organizations that Campaign for Nature works with to kind of, again, bridge those connections and raise consciousness and support their work. So the opportunity here is pairing simple visuals and messaging with supporting data and facts to create new connections using different trim tab points. From a two-person meeting where somebody's kind of presenting a proposal and making the case for supporting a new plan or a new funding initiative that may not be in their backyard, but they realize is important to maintaining our ecosystem, or to tens of thousands of conference goers where this could be incorporated into slides or in posters at different events. It could show up on a grocery store item to billboards seen by thousands of people on public transit or driving each day. The impact of this is that it makes the invisible visible. It shows the interconnections embedded in the everyday and priority funding areas that people can't currently see, and shows that biodiversity feeds everyday thriving. And then it creates that invitation in tone and approach by complementing other initiatives and not, maybe making people choose one thing over another. It's designed to bridge and support by connecting these different messages and helping people see things in a different way. And then kind of having that more playful and inviting approach through open source materials that will enable more people to join this push for preserving biodiversity. We kind of put together a timeline as part of our pitch. So we're currently in the process of kind of developing and prototyping those materials, reviewing some research, deciding on different approaches and things like that around some of these topics like health, disaster, economy, and seeing what biodiversity efforts are connected to that. And then, depending on like what happens next in terms of funding and support, there could be opportunities to do some larger installations at conferences like, COP29 or like Climate Week or other things like that. The team that created this was, I guess, me, Kelly, Suparna, and Stephanie. So that's our team. And so kind of our invitation here is to kind of weave with us as we reframe consciousness and remember we're all part of this one biodiverse system. And we're currently putting out a call for art and design collaborators. We're still kind of working through the research that Campaign for Nature provided to kind of develop the messaging and things, but we want to invite people, if that's, photography, posters, graphic designers, any sort of folks who are working on visual stuff to maybe be collaborators to kind of create some of those visuals that could be used as part of this. Everything would be credited with like your name and DSS, the goal is to really kind of showcase and make greater connections to people's artwork within this community and like the DSS community as well. So to get involved, you can reach out to me and Stephanie on WhatsApp if you're part of the DSS group. And then all of these photos of the webs and stuff were by Stephanie. So yeah, if you have any questions about that, definitely reach out. All right, any questions, comments, thoughts?
Looks like Stacy has a comment in the chat about how good data.
Okay,
Stephanie,
great.
could you share a little bit about what this resource is? I mean, Stacy.
Yeah, totally. So some people here might know Ethan Soloviev. He's kind of runs around in the regenerative agriculture and permaculture worlds for a long time now, and he's part of Carol Sanford's community. So this is one of his projects, and I think that they're mainly partnering with food companies. And I don't know if are you still sharing? Should I share the site or?
Oh, I can. Yeah, there we go. Because I already opened it. So yeah.
Because I was just also learning about it at the same time a little bit more, but yeah, it looks like they mostly partner with food companies, but basically they have like a scorecard on all these different sustainability factors. And they're also they're in a developmental school for learning how to think regeneratively. So I think they kind of they're probably more evolutionary in how they think about it when they design this. But I don't know how much detail they have on biodiversity. I just know that the data is probably really good and it could be an interesting conversation, if nothing else.
Yeah, it could be an interesting partnership, because that's kind of like, there's like the root idea of this, but in terms of, if you wanted to do like an on-site activation at something like, New York City Climate Week or something, like I think having it's all, it's about all those interconnections. Like, I think you can't maybe just go to like an unsustainable like food vendor or something. You want to kind of have your values as part of everything. So that sounds super cool. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, if anybody else has any other ideas, like for potential partners, if there's people you think might be interested in funding some of this past, or like being more involved past that, like we're definitely open to kind of hear about organizations as ideas. It helps us leverage the collective intelligence, because we have a lot of people with different connections and awareness of different groups or organizations or companies. So please feel free to send those our way as well, because it just helps strengthen things.
Vincent, could you share a little bit about this resource that you have in the chat?
There's an organization called the Lexicon, and they're working on this framework called the Ecological Benefits Framework. And a large part of where they're focusing is on food systems. They came to mind immediately. I think there's a lot of overlap with the work you guys are doing. So I'm going to share some links in the chat. I think if you don't know about them, you should check them out.
Okay, great.
Great, thank you.
And it looks like Zach has their hand raised.
Hey, Kelly. How you doing?
Good.
Sweet. Okay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a process called freeze dry?
Yes.
What is freeze dry?
I don't know scientifically how it works. I know I have eaten freeze dried food and stuff like that for things like camping.
Totally. For people who do not know what freeze dry is, it is a process of where good, strong amounts of nutrition and food is gone through a process and it is put into a powder in sachets, and it's for people who go to mountains. So you've got people who go to some of the highest peaks, some of the highest places, and they need some of the most effective and nutritional types of food to be able to make in a quick amount of time because of the atmospheric differences and the environmental factors. So your freeze dry is when basically you just add water to a sachet and you get a full meal straight away. It's an incredibly effective way to gain a lot more nutrition. And it also is to know where it comes from, because there's a lot of food out there that has zero nutrition. But I just wanted to ask, because it sounds like you're incredibly in tune with diet. Is that right?
Yeah, this is more of I think this is definitely taking like different levels of not just food, but also kind of how does kind of protecting and funding biodiversity in different aspects, even if it doesn't have a direct connection to food or something we extract. I think it is seeing that, hey, like protecting and preserving spaces, even if we aren't planning to take something out of that space, is really important. I think it really ties into, because I was part of the decolonial sustainability class, and it is viewing, like we don't need to, I think it's like not just preserving something because we want to like use the space or something like that, but because it kind of has inherent value and connection. So that's kind of like cool to think about, is like, what are those broader connections? And there is a thing that's the kind of like the entry point can be things like maybe food, things that people, like enjoy and things like that. And then that kind of is like the stepping stone to how do you kind of take a step beyond just protecting something or that you maybe care about and get benefit from directly to something more broader as an ecosystem, and kind of in that, like, I think like maybe solidarity and connection with like other people and things like that. Like, would you, protect an environment and space that maybe, so again, Indigenous folks to the area can still, have their regular diets of things like fish or something like that without it being contaminated, or they don't have to like move because we've decided, you know, there's wildfires or we're cutting down a bunch of things. So that's kind of like the really, and it was like the really interesting part of this project was we're basically trying to get global North countries who are like, yeah, we've kind of benefited off of extracting resources from the global South for millennia. And now we kind of have to protect it because they're doing a much better job at maintaining kind of the global ecosystem. So yeah, that's like kind of like the way like thinking about it is like, what's that bridge and connection? And food is one inroad because it is so connected to culture. It's connected to things we do every day. And then what's that kind of next step?
I have a question. Are you considering doing any like workshops or anything like this to help people ideate or develop and to expand some of the like library of approaches to this stuff? Like, I'm thinking about that whenever you're talking about sort of place-based activations and engaging those local communities to kind of think and then going to be change agents. But I was just wondering, maybe I missed it in terms of like the strategy. I just know you do a lot of teaching, so I thought that might be something that you've been considering.
Yeah, that could definitely be cool. I think our mentor for the project mentioned, New York City Climate Week, which is something I've always wanted to go to. So it's interesting, kind of like I hadn't like thought of that because we'd originally had this vision of maybe something bigger. But I think that could be, I don't know, it could be a cool potential start depending how different things go in terms of things like maybe finding partners and funding and stuff like that. Or like what different opportunities could arise. So yeah, or if people are interested, they could figure out maybe some way of like approaching that. I do love like workshops and things like that.
Exciting. Yeah, this would be amazing at New York Climate Week and San Francisco Climate Week, which is coming up too.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm happy to it became evident that, or Stephanie, you did a good job at kind of bringing up what the Campaign for Nature Hackathon was. And since it didn't get like fully introduced, I can like share a little bit more about it as we segue, because I think it was pretty cool. And I did put our link in the chat, and we'll share a little bit more, but I think it would help kind of build a bit more of a bridge as well to what you shared, Kelly, about kind of moving away from our patterns of orienting to space in an extractive way, and recognizing kind of the bigger piece of the puzzle that protecting and restoring biodiversity plays as the kind of impetus for this whole challenge space. But yeah, I can share a little bit about that when you're done. Is there anything else that would be helpful in terms of, you said like share it via WhatsApp, but there's a bunch of folks, at least in the room, that are not from DSS, and then there's also folks in the stream. So is there like a good email, or what's the best contact?
Oh, sorry. I guess, email would work. Mine's just KANooner@gmail.com. And then Stephanie, what's yours? We could also put it in the chat as well.
Yeah. I can add it into the chat right now.
Well, congratulations. I'm so excited about this project. And I know that the Campaign for Nature was really feeling like this one had some strong legs, and could fit many different possible like spaces. It could make sense for large groups. It could make sense in a boardroom. It could make sense, as these like creative intervention trip type spaces in like a grocery store. There's like a guerrilla marketing layer to it. Like it's just these little ways to like reframe all the time. And it's really smart. And I'm really looking forward to what else comes of it. And I see thoughts in your head, Stephanie. Is there something
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because like in terms of having a having like a little toolkit, right? Like the idea of some workshops, because, we kind of, in order to have others involved, whether through their artwork or through their ideas of taking and creating the simple ideas, like that is a great idea in order to have that actually come into fruition. So that is a good idea. Yeah.
Great. Well, looking forward to some of those workshops. And thank you both so much, and looking forward to continue to see how this plays out and how we can be a support. And I'm really glad that you were able to share about it today.
Thank you.
Okay, so I am going to share a little bit about the background of the Pathways program, because we were just talking about it a little bit. And then we're supposed to be having Sequoia Fisher share Electric Skin, but Sequoia got the days mixed up, and it's actually, she thought it was tomorrow. So maybe we'll just squeeze her in tomorrow. We're going to figure it out. But I do want to talk a little bit about framing, like closing the loop for what the Campaign for Nature was all about. So Campaign for Nature is this 30 by 30 initiative. So our partners are the Campaign for Nature. And we partnered with them to bring together artists from across the Design Science Studio to design creative interventions like the one that Kelly and Stephanie and Mark and Larissa and tomorrow you'll hear from Salem all created, and also Stacy and Marv and Stephen, a handful of other folks who are in the room. Melina, Irena, all participated. And so we kind of broke down the challenge between what it was and where things were at. And I can put this in the chat as well for folks who wanted to dig deeper. I won't go all the way in, but essentially, on one hand, there was a commitment to this 30 by 30 initiative. By 2030, protect and restore 30% of the world's wild space. And also that requires moving a lot of funding over to Global South or global majority countries who are bearing the brunt of a lot of the extraction and degradation of the spaces that hold the most biodiversity, as well as recognizing that the 80% of the world's natural spaces are stewarded by Indigenous peoples. And so a lot of the work of actually following through on this now signed commitment by the UN to address the problem requires paying $20 billion to these Global South countries every year. And so how to bring this to the awareness of the people, how to put the pressure on these heads of state, this is kind of the challenge. And this is what the folks at the Campaign for Nature and our creatives in the Design Science Studio and our partnership is exploring. How do we support this? And how do we continue to think about, like, what are creative interventions that we can do? So we brought together a team of experts who were working on this declaration to support for these 3 days and now ongoing mentorship. It's a really interesting and important initiative, and it's like a very important moment in history, similar to, I think, the Paris Climate Agreement. This 30 by 30 initiative getting enacted is just as historic. Most people don't know that, like on one hand, people are like carbon drawdown, but if you don't at the same time do this work of protecting and restoring biodiversity and restoring Indigenous land rights, then it won't work. So it's a pretty big goal, and they're really excited to find ways to encourage as many folks as possible to be creating around this. And so if this subject inspires you and you want to dig in and do some work around this, please reach out. And there's a ton of resources that they've provided for us, and many different pathways that can help to make these actions of committing to moving this money, getting the public involved in understanding, and make visible actually how money flows and the impact that it has. So definitely encourage everyone to check it out. I want to just talk a little bit about the agenda for tomorrow. So we will open again at 10 a.m. Kairishi Wigginton will start with our opening ceremony for tomorrow, which will be a beautiful 2 poems from her upcoming show, Too Much Woman for This World. We'll have a conversation with Damien Madre about the importance of myth. Gio is going to share about her Somos Ajalote presentation, which they've been working on in Xochimilco in Mexico City. They've been building these like giant sculptural heads of ajalotes, and they just did a big release of a bunch of paintings of them. And so they're working on getting these installations to put more information in the hands of the public about this beautiful creature that's actually currently endangered, and there's a lot of tourism in that area. We'll hear from Stacy Swade, talk about sentience and sense and science. Stacy has a lot of work with making the invisible visible. Wahinia is the music that you were hearing earlier. His project from Cohort 2 was all about preserving Kenyan cultural music and Kenyan traditional instruments. And so he created the Kikuyu Art Center as his incubated project, and he's going to share about that. Salem Jordan is going to lead us through a speculative design workshop alongside sharing about her project from the campaign Pathways Hackathon, Planetary Revolution. And then we'll have Stephanie back for a conversation about focus and neurodiversity and creativity. Share a little bit more about the positive ripples of contributing to our I.D.E.A Scholarship Fund. Joanna will come and share a bit about restorative justice as a liberatory practice and lead us through a visualization around that. Krishnan, who's been with us today, who's a new friend, creator who I met through the course that I've been helping to lead for the last year and is currently running called D-Web for Creators, and is going to have an interview with Krishnan on Ancient Future Anthrotech, cultivating community self-awareness through story and play. So excited about this and the way that Krishnan is really building a bridge of Ancient Future and looking at the way we tell stories and the way we use technology to build ritual around making meaning together. Chad Frischman will come and share about moving from drawdown to regeneration and their upcoming regeneration course. We'll have Mage talking about weaving our mythos and how our words weave the worlds that we live. Marley from Cohort 2 is going to come in and do a performance, share a new piece, and talk about regeneration as an inside job. Harlan will share about his 12 spiral city arcology. Hopefully Sequoia will be able to squeeze in there to share about the self-powering biomaterial electric skin, which was Sequoia's project from Cohort 2. And then we're going to have a whole flux with Jurgis, which is going to be so fun. So definitely don't miss it. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone for being a part of Invisible Visible today. All of our friends, all of our partners, all of the creatives that came together, all of the volunteers, and all of you for being present. You know, it really takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there and to create and put your visions, your care, and your radical imaginations out to community. But it is so much through community that we find places and islands of solace in this intense world, knowing that we are not alone. The sympoiesis that the article was about, it's about creating together. And that is true. And, you know, when we think about making the invisible visible, I wrote about it in the little article that I put in, but it's really, this is like billions of years of evolution. We are not alone. We are interdependent and woven together. And the more we can recognize that, the more we can feel and see and live all the different pieces that we're all holding, it makes it all feel a little bit more buoyant. That opening poem from Neha about how fire ants survive floods by holding their hands together for sometimes weeks. I think we're definitely in a flood in this world, and we are holding hands. So I want to just express a lot of gratitude, and we have an amazing program tomorrow. And of course, as always, no one is ever turned away for lack of funds, but all of the money goes to support the scholarship fund. And if you can, and if you haven't, and if you enjoyed today, I really want to encourage everyone to share about it and invite some folks that you maybe thought of would enjoy this. Want to just do a shout out to the team that made it all happen, and continue to encourage folks to contribute to the fund. And thank you so much. It's been an amazing day. What a inspiring way to contribute to culture and to each other. And may we carry these seeds forward, and depending on what time of day it is in your world, take some time, go outside and have some integration and connect with one another. I'm going to bring up my bliss. I'm going to bring up Bliss in case you want to share any closing words.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you did a great job of, summarizing what we are all about here, and just really, cultivating that community. And I think that there's just so much work being done in the world to make it a place for all of life. And I think that the more we can support the scholarship fund, the more we have the opportunity to hear and share and amplify the voices that wouldn't normally be heard. So I think it is incredibly important to contribute to the fund and help support all of those the beautiful artists that we're going to hear from tomorrow, and we heard from today, and the other 300 and XYZ number of people that have been in the cohort.
Thank you, Bliss. Thank you for all you do. And thank you, everyone. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and stick around. There's much more going on the train, and it's definitely going to stay on the track. So if you want to keep creating, the train will stay open. But for now, we're going to close our stream for today and welcome everyone back tomorrow. Feel free to unmute and share any joys or sounds.
And thank you, Eve, and thank you, Julia, and thank you, Vincent, and thank you every single person that has volunteered.
Thank you.
And Miriam for the beautiful graphics. I'm assuming this one is a Miriam. It looks like a Miriam.
Totally. Yeah, and thank you, Catalyst, big time. That beautiful, simple, easy to navigate schedule is one of the sexiest agendas I've ever seen. I'm like, oh, it's so clean and organized. Wow, it's complicated to organize so many people. So I'm just so grateful to have so many folks that ikigai. We all find our part in the ways that we want to contribute to co-creating a world that works for all. And Catalyst is definitely helping make that happen. So big ups to Vincent and to all of you. Yay. Amazing. All right. Well, I'm going to turn off the stream and see